Welcome to Shujin Academy VGM Club. I'm Professor Tom, your faculty sponsor. Today's opening theme was Main Theme 2 from Top Gear 3000, composed by Neil Biggin. Last episode, I talked all about composer Barry Leach's work on the Lotus and Top Gear games, and I promised I'd revisit the topic with my next episode. And so now, as it was prophesied, so has it come to pass. Because today, we're talking all about other composers and what they've done for the Lotus and Top Gear games. I covered the music of the first 2 Lotus Turbo Challenge games last time, and to start off this episode, we're going to talk about the third Lotus game. It was called Lotus III, The Ultimate Challenge, which was also the subtitle of WrestleMania 6, which was the first WrestleMania I ever watched, and the main event featured Hulk Hogan fighting against the Ultimate Warrior. WrestleMania, I mean, not Lotus 3. Anyway, Lotus 3 expanded the series by adding a third playable car and by adding a track creation utility to the game, which is a cool innovation that several games did back then that's kind of been lost as we've moved out of the 16 and 32-bit generations of gaming, although it does sort of live on today via mods for PC games. And also, Patrick Phelan came into the series as a composer. Much like Barry Leach, Patrick Phelan is one of those veteran composers who did a lot of work on computer games in the European territories, and that's probably why we don't think of him as prominently as some of his console-based contemporaries. The VGM podcasting scene is mostly based in North America, and so music for some of the European platforms in general, and the Amiga in particular, can be a real blind spot for us. Mr. Phelan did a bang-up job on these tracks, creating a worthy successor to Barry Leach's soundtrack for Lotus 2. This whole soundtrack is awesome and worth checking out, and we're going to hear most of it, starting with the main theme, which is also called Lotus 3, followed by Breathless, then Shamrip. And because I'm pretty literal-minded, we're going to close out the block with a song named Complete. Start your engines! those songs were Lotus 3 title theme, Breathless, Shamrip, and finally Complete, all from Lotus 3 The Ultimate Challenge for the Amiga, all composed by Patrick Phelan. On our last episode, we talked all about Top Gear, so on the sequel episode, I am of course going to talk about Top Gear 2. Racing games generally fall on a spectrum with arcadey on one side, like Daytona USA or Outrun, and simulation-y on the other side, like Gran Turismo. In the 16-bit era, the racing games tend to be on the arcadey side because the limited hardware of the era lends itself much better to replicating the fantasy of racing instead of the reality of racing. But both the Lotus and Top Gear series tended to be somewhere in the middle. They included arcadey elements like turbo boosts, but they also featured concepts from the simulation side of things like fuel management and, particularly noteworthy for Top Gear 2, weather effects. While the first Top Gear was for the Super NES, Top Gear 2 also came out for the Genesis, the Amiga, and even the Amiga CD32. Patrick Phelan came back from Lotus 3 to compose the soundtrack with a little bit of help for the various ports. I checked out all 4 of these soundtracks, and I'm going to play songs from 3 of them. I'm skipping the Amiga because its tracks sound like downgrades from the Super NES soundtrack. Because I am covering 3 different systems, I'm going to bend my normal blocky format just a little, and I'm going to break between each console's songs to discuss some things. We're going to start off with 3 songs from the Amiga CD32 version of Top Gear 2. These are the first CD32 tracks I have ever played on the show, and they may well be the last because the CD32 library is less than 150 games and it never came out in the US, so I know virtually nothing about its music. What I do know is that Top Gear 2 is generally perceived as an SNES title first, and that soundtrack is the one we think of first, but the Amiga CD32 soundtrack took advantage of the CD format to really rearrange the tracks. The CD32 soundtrack is one of those arrangements that's really faithful to the original, just with richer production and instrumentation, kind of like the difference between the original Neo Turf Masters soundtrack and the arrangement for the Neo Geo CD. Patrick Phelan got a little help from Neil Biggin for this version, and remember that name because it's going to come up again later. I'll start us off with Night Train, the title screen theme. I'm going to follow that up with Burn Rubber, the song for the Canterbury Plains race, and then we'll hear Results. And I'd suggest headphones for this because you might be missing some of the benefits that stereo can provide.
Benefits that stereo can provide.
Those tracks were Night Train, Burn Rubber, and Results, all from the Amiga CD32 version of Top Gear 2, all composed by Patrick Phelan with Neil Biggin. Driving on to the Sega Genesis now. The Genesis soundtrack uses a lot of the same melodies and chords as the other versions, but it's reinterpreted through the audio lens of the Yamaha YM2612, and it sounds fantastic. If the only version of the soundtrack you've ever heard is the Super Nintendo, then this is like hearing a really interesting cover of a song you love, interpreted through a different genre. It also avoids a lot of the pitfalls that Genesis port soundtracks can fall into, where they just try to port the music straight instead of reinterpreting it. This is probably because the Genesis soundtrack was done by Neil Biggin on his own, and it's one of only 2 Genesis games where he has music credits. That's kind of a shame, because I like these songs so much, I would have liked to hear more of what Neil could do with the YM2612. Anyway, we're going to hear Top Racer, the theme for the Auckland race, credited to Neil Biggin adapting Patrick Phelan's original soundtrack. That was Top Racer from the Genesis version of Top Gear 2, composed by Neil Biggin and Patrick Phelan. I'm going to close out our audio tour through Top Gear 2 by coming home to the Super Nintendo version of the soundtrack, which is the one I'm most familiar with. We'll hear Destructive Comment, which is the theme for the Ayres rock race, and I'll follow that with Ending Theme, which is the game's ending theme. Both tracks are credited to Patrick Phelan and Ashley Bennett, and interestingly enough, Top Gear 2 is apparently the only game where Ashley Bennett has an audio credit. Mr. Bennett is generally a developer and not a sound guy. But enough talk. Time to drive! And now for a word from our sponsor.
Hey everyone, it's Ed from the VG Embassy. It's almost June, and I'm sure you know what that means. It's almost time for the Masters of VGM event. This is an event where for the entire month, all of your favorite VGM podcasts will focus on one theme around video game music composers. This year, we're sharing composers that we feel might deserve a little bit more of the spotlight than they're currently getting. There's going to be a ton of shows participating. Let me see, I have that list here. Hey Larry, you got that list? No, not the grocery list. The list of all the podcasts. Yeah. What do you mean you gave it to me already? No, I don't have it. Oh, look, all right. Oh, here it is. My bad. All right, so it's going to be my show, as well as Nerd Noise Radio, Shujin Academy VGM Club, A VGM Journey, VG Emporium, Re-VGM, Gameable Audio, BG Mania, Rhythm and Pixels, CRT Sound System, Volt Supreme Synth VGM Dreamstream Machine, and more. More? What do you mean more, Larry? Who's the more? No, I don't know. You put more on here. All right, well, I guess there's going to be more. If you want to find out who the more is, check out mastersofvgm.com on your favorite web browser, or hit up the tweets at Masters of VGM. We hope you enjoy the event.
Wait, was that a real thing? Did I just play a promo for a genuine thing that's actually happening instead of something I made up? Are we really doing Masters of VGM too? Oh man, I gotta get to choosing some composers. Well, before I get to my next episode on some Masters of VGM, let's stay on focus for this episode and talk about the last game I'm going to cover in this series and on this episode, Top Gear 3000. Unlike Top Gear 2, Top Gear 3000 was only released for the Super NES, and also unlike Top Gear 2, Top Gear 3000 is set in the distant future. Future. Like most racing games set in the future, it leans hard into the arcade side of the arcadey versus simulation-y racing game spectrum, with turbo boosts and nuclear engines and weapons. Anytime there's weapons in a racer, it's gone full arcadey. It's set in the year 3000, or maybe a few years before that. The manual says one thing and the game's title says another, and all the tracks are supposed to be on different planets, which all look like Earth for some reason, and the cars all have bubble domes on top and look futuristic. There's some kind of plot about fun getting outlawed, and as we all know, when fun is outlawed, only outlaws have fun, or something like that. Really, though, the game plays a lot like other games in the series, and most importantly for our show, the music is once again awesome. Neil Biggin, remember that name? Graduated into the lead composer role, and his tracks are just as fast-paced and kinetic as the rest of the series, so we're going to check a bunch of them out in our last music segment. We are once again going to start off our block of songs with the title theme, followed by Main Theme 3, and then Main Theme 4, which are all background songs for races, and then we'll close out the block with Ending Theme. Either none of these songs have creative names, or Neil Biggin gave them creative names and then chose not to share them with the world, or the tracks all really do have creative names, and they're just lost to history like a ton of other stuff in game music. My money's on that last one. Anyway, they're great songs, so let's check out Neil Biggin's work on Top Gear 3000 for the Super NES. Those songs were Title, Main Theme 3, Main Theme 4, and Ending Theme, all for Top Gear 3000 from the Super NES, all composed by Neil Biggin. And that's the show. If you want to reach me, you can find me on Mastodon at Shujin Academy VGM Club at mastodon.coffee or on Discord as Professor Tom 7512, although that might change soon, what with Discord's upcoming username changes. I'm also on both Tumblr and Instagram as Shujin Academy VGM Club. You can email me at shujinacademyvgmclub@gmail.com. Episodes of the show are posted on my YouTube channel, which you can find by searching for Shujin Academy VGM Club. All my links to everything are available on my Linktree at linktr.ee/Shujin Academy. Please leave me a 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you're finding this episode. Look for new episodes on Thursdays whenever I get them done, which is typically once or twice a month. Special thanks for this episode goes out to fellow VGM podcaster Jameson of Bar Silence Podcast for contributing cover art. You can and should find Bar Silence wherever you download podcasts, and check out his website at barsilence.com. I'm going to break theme just a little here for the outro track. As you heard on the promo, multiple VGM podcasters are once again coming together this summer for Masters of VGM 2, and as soon as Bedroth announced that the event would be themed around lesser-known composers, I thought of one man. His name is Michael Kelly, also known as Garoad, and he's only done a handful of soundtracks, but they're all great. I've played several of his songs from cyberpunk bartending visual novel Valhalla, and I'm going to close us out with another one. I'll be playing Good for Health, Bad for Education, and yes, that song's title is an explicit shout-out to Kaneda's jacket in the anime classic Akira. Thank you for listening. I'm Professor Tom, and I'll see you next time on Shujin Academy VGM Club.